This is a quick update on exchange controls and how they affect tech startups in South Africa. Now, you may know that I've been on the South African Startup Act Steering Committee for a few years, and that committee has done amazing things with engaging with the South African Reserve Bank and National Treasury to explain to them the challenges that our tech startup clients have with raising funds globally. The specific challenge here really is that many investors in the global stage simply won't put money into a South African company. So they need our clients to set up an offshore company that will own the IP of that company and then be able to receive the investment. That offshore company should typically own the South African company as a subsidiary in the ideal world. A lot of people have used mirror structures in the past, but it's quite a cumbersome structure to present to investors. So our ideal opportunity is to go to SARB and have a very slick way to set up an offshore holding company structure. Now, you can do that at the moment if you set up an offshore holding company that buys your South African company at fair market value and pays cash to the shareholders. But naturally, that can be expensive if your South African company has been very successful. Also, at the moment, the South African IP can't be simply transferred or even sold to the offshore company because you need SARB approval for that in advance. So we've been engaging with the National Treasury quite closely with explaining what these challenges are and asking them for liberalizations, if you can call it that, to exchange controls. Then in February this year, National Treasury and SARB released draft exchange controls for public comment. This is the first time we can remember them issuing draft exchange control regulation changes for public comment rather than just issuing them as law. So we've engaged very closely with them, commented on them, and then met with National Treasury and SARB again to explain our concerns with them, or at least refinements. The challenge with the draft exchange controls proposed by SARB are that they anticipate South African companies setting up an offshore company for purpose of raising funding. So far, so good. But they require that offshore company to be a South African tax resident and effectively managed and controlled in South Africa. The problem with that is that investors will see that South African tax residents as potentially falling within the risks that they want to mitigate by having an offshore company in the first place. SARB also say that the IP can't be transferred offshore without SARB's prior permission, and they say you can't use clever structuring techniques such as share-for-share swaps rather than cash payments to structure the offshore company as a holding company. So we'd still have to buy the South African company at fair market value and for cash, which involves a cash transaction to the South African shareholders, which brings us back to the original challenge that we faced. So in summary, where we've asked SARB to allow our clients to set up offshore holding companies who can then buy South African companies through share-for-share swaps and then transfer the IP to those offshore companies, specifically to unlock international investment, SARB have rather said that South African companies can set up offshore cos, which not need to be South African tax residents, and which can't receive the intellectual property without SARB's permission, and still need prior permission to do anything like a share-for-share swap if they want to acquire the South African company. So we still are quite far apart from SARB as to where we are, but our dialogue with them is extremely healthy, more so than I've seen in years, and I must give credit to the SA Startup Act Committee for that and their engagement with SARB. But we'll keep you informed with further developments, and we're holding plans that will come closer and closer together. Thanks.